Good morning, everyone. It's David Corey. We are about to begin the EQI 2.0 Leadership Debrief webinar. It's great to have everyone on the line. As you may know, this webinar is about demonstrating what a debrief conversation sounds like. And so what we do is, together with my colleague from the Emotional Intelligence Training Company, we demonstrate, act out, role play, if you will, a sample or mock debrief session, just so that you can get a sense of how the conversation goes, that you can see some of our choices when we choose to interpret and provide feedback to a client based on their EQI scores, and also give you a bit of a sense of the brand new in January of 2013 leadership report, which we at EITC are really enjoying using. It is a report that compares EQ results, as you'll see, with a particular leadership model, a model of transformational leadership. And it's just a really great way of focusing EQ on leadership. When leadership is the focus of your development, then the leadership report is absolutely the best report to use. It just takes the idea of EQ for leadership just really to another level. And that's what we want to demonstrate for you and show you today. Our organization does a lot of work in the area of leadership development. That is one of our primary focuses. And so when MHS, Multi Health Systems, the publisher of the EQI, came out with a leadership report, we were extremely excited about that. And we found that that we are using the leadership report almost exclusively with our corporate clients. We're going to carry on for about half an hour or so, and then we're going to take questions and have a bit of a discussion about this. So it's really a condensed demonstration. So we're going to condense, we usually take an hour for our debriefs, and we're going to condense this into a half an hour. Kim is going to play the role of Philip, Mr. Example, and we're going to pretend that that Philip is part of a leadership development program with his organization, and then we are going to talk through the results as if we were doing an actual debrief. So welcome, Philip. Good to have you on the line with us this morning. Now, Philip, as you know, you took the EQI as part of the leadership program at your organization, and I just want to talk about our objectives for the session. We're going to actually take a look at the results of your online assessment and talk about what those might mean for you in terms of those areas that reinforcing those areas that and affirming those areas that you do well, and talking about some of the areas that you might want to consider for development. Now, before we start, I just want to remind you of confidentiality, that our conversation is completely confidential. Nothing that we talk about this morning goes beyond the two of us. So just for your assurance. What would be helpful for me, Philip, is if you told me a little bit about your role and what's going on there to provide a bit of context for our conversation. Would you do that for me?
Yeah, sure. I just want to clarify. So this report that I have in front of me doesn't get shared with anybody else here at Public Service Canada?
That's correct, Philip. The information in this report is just between the two of us. We send you the electronic copy. We delete the electronic copies off our computer. So if you print out a hard copy, you will have the only hard copy. Now, we encourage you to share some of the things that you learn from this report, but there's no requirement to hand over the report to anyone else.
Okay. Okay,
So,
thanks.
so tell me a little bit about your
So a bit of
role.
context.
Yep.
Well, I'm well. I've been in a management role here in Public Service Canada for a number of years now, and I'm 52. Um, there have been a lot of changes, a lot of rapid changes in the last year, and I find myself in a position now where rather than having a hands-on leadership role, I'm doing a lot of managing virtually. So my territory has been expanded from dealing really with BC to dealing with three Western provinces now. So there's a lot of virtual management taking place in a very shifting kind of work culture.
Okay, so you've been with
Um,
the federal government for a long time, and so
yes,
now there's quite a period of you've entered over the last year or so quite a period of rapid change. Is that correct?
yes, that's right. And I think that I mean I'll be honest with you. I mean I was encouraged to do this by my boss. I'm not really clear why I've been put, you know, why we're doing this, but um, and I have to say right off the top too that when I went online to do it, I was really in a bit of a rush at the end of the day, and just kind of flew through it. So I'm kind of interested to see what results that has yielded.
Okay, Philip. Well, let me tell you why we're doing this, and I guess the reason, Philip, if I could speak on behalf of your employer for a moment, is that there is an evolution going on, and the workplace is evolving from the old school traditional kind of workplace characterized by autocratic authoritative leadership to one which is much more collaborative in nature, where relationships are everything, where communication and connection and collaboration are the order of the day. And this initiative right here is about being intentional about that, making sure that you understand if you were to intentionally develop your skills to be one of those collaborative leaders, that this is really a way to do that. And so we're looking at a foundational set of skills and competencies that you possess, those competencies that are most highly correlated with a collaborative, participative workplace culture that the federal government and every organization the world over is striving for. So that's a little bit more about why we're doing this. Let me introduce to you the transformational leadership model that your scores are related to. If you turn to page 2 with me, Philip, you'll see that we've got this model of transformational leadership that's based on 4 dimensions. The first dimension is the idea of authenticity. This is about being authentically who you really are, and being someone and the importance of being a leader who is moral and fair. We do not respond well to leaders who are not moral and not fair. All you have to do is look to examples in the world to know that the people of Egypt, the people of Libya, Syria, they have said, listen, we do not want this leader who is not a moral or fair person. And is not transparent with us. So this is a little bit more about the kind of leaders that we respond best to, that we really want to work hard for and make our best contribution to. And the idea of coaching, this is one of the primary roles of leaders, is to make sure that they are interested in. Apologies for that. That they're interested in it and wanting to develop the people that report to them. So that's about that emphasis, and we want people who share the insights and experiences they've gained over the years. That's the insight piece, and then finally, we want a leader who is consistently asking us, how can we do things better? Not we're doing it this way because we've always done it that way. Also about this report, Philip, is that you have not only been compared to a representative sample of the North American population, but you've also been compared to a group of effective leaders. So we're going to be looking at that, and there's this idea of the gold bar, which is the range at which the top leaders in the sample of leaders has scored on the EQI. So we're going to be looking at that as well as we take a look at your overall scores. Let's turn to page 3 now. You'll notice there's a lot of text in the report, Philip, and I'm going to leave that for you to read later. You see your executive summary. That includes your total emotional intelligence score, which is 102. Now, 100 is the population mean, and so you can see that that your okay, so other people, I'm just noticing that other people are talking about the fact that I was cutting in and out when I was using the computer audio. So apologies for that, everyone. We'll carry on. So with the total emotional intelligence score at 102 places you right around the mean. And so that's where most people in the population score. It's not that it's a bad thing, it's just that in terms of the most effective leaders in our leadership sample, they scored above that. And so with respect to the gold bar, which is really the target range that we're shooting for, you're just below that. So that means that there are some of your individual detailed scores which are in the range and others which are not. And so let's take a look at those now. So for example, your highest three seem to be, your highest score seems to be an emotional expression. Does that ring true for you, Philip, or are you pretty, fairly emotionally expressive?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty willing to share my emotions, and I'm actually just in some ways chuckling at that a bit because I have found myself on the more negative end of the emotional scale lately, just with all the changes and everything that's been going on. So maybe that's some of the reflection there too. Speaking my mind about some of the changes that have been forced on us,
Okay.
really.
All right. So that emotional expression may in fact be your reaction or response to some of the changes that are going on in
Right,
your workplace, which are
right,
not necessarily positive.
right.
Okay. Now, in terms of self-regard, that is, having a good sense of your strengths and weaknesses, feeling confident and self-assured. Seems you fall right within the leadership bar on that one, and that seems to suggest that you feel fairly confident, and that could be because of your years of experience, or does that seem to ring true for you?
Well, I think maybe what's happening there, I mean, I'm actually maybe in some ways surprised that that's in that gold bar range because I think again it's being at this age and stage. I don't feel as powerful, as capable as I have, throughout my career. So that's interesting that's up into that gold bar range. I mean, I don't feel terrible about myself. I think I'm pretty aware of my strengths and my areas that might need a bit of growth, but I just feel like I'm on a bit unsettled ground within at this point, I guess.
Okay. And with respect to optimism, that is sort of choosing to see things in a more positive way, it seems that possibly you still believe that things can be better than they are.
Yeah, I think that I still cling to a faint hope clause that that things can improve.
Okay. Okay, that's we'll take that and we'll try to sort of leverage and build on some of those real strengths that you have. Let's take a look at your lowest three, and the reason that we look at lowest three is that these are possibly some of the areas where you could get the best return on your investment in developing. And so let's consider these as some of the areas where you might really be able to improve your overall leadership effectiveness by focusing on these areas. So the first one is problem solving at 73. That appears to be your lowest score. And you can see that it is quite a bit below the population mean of 100. And then with respect to the gold bar range, we're quite a ways from that as well. So does that surprise you at all that your score is a little bit lower in problem solving?
No, it's not a surprise actually. I mean, I think that at this point I'm feeling like I'm flailing about a bit, and so many things on my plate, and not really feeling like I'm able to resolve any of those situations.
And
Just scrambling from one to the other.
well, and just to remind you that the problem solving with respect to this particular model is really about the idea that emotions accompany problem solving and support or hinder the cognitive process. And so, for example, one of the statements related to problem solving that you responded to was, when I'm really upset, I can't decide what to do. And you said that that was sometimes true for you.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that. When you're upset, you can't decide what to do. You said that was sometimes true. What are those times? And maybe just to try to gain some insight into that.
Well, I think again, it's about directives, just seemingly coming in from left field all the time about rapid shifts in what we're supposed to be achieving, and again, I think it is there's that resentment, anger that builds up, and rather than trying to look at, okay, how can this best be managed, I think that really I am going with that. I'm just kind of fed up with the system, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. So the things that are happening are upsetting, and then in terms of your response to that, it's like, well, what are you supposed to do?
Right. I guess I have a feeling of like my hands up in the air. What do you expect us to do with continually diminishing resources and ever increasing issues and problems?
Right. And this problem solving area is also about worrying about problems, about avoiding dealing with
Yeah.
problems, about
Yeah.
getting feeling overwhelmed. And you said that these are sometimes true for you as well. That this
Yes.
avoidance and worrying and being overwhelmed. So again, it seems like maybe these are all kind of tied together in a way.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I see that clearly too. And I mean, really, my sleep is not what it used to be. I don't think I'm eating as well as I should be. Well, it's not think. I know I'm not. I'm
Right.
not. I'm not really getting enough exercise. So it just, yeah, it all seems kind of cumulative.
Okay, and leadership in terms of the initiative here, I think is a lot of what we're talking about here is we're encouraging people to step up. And we're encouraging people to ask the question, what would a leader do in this situation? And you've been a manager for many years, and management traditionally has been about, okay, here's your area. This is what we want you to be concerned about, and we want you to make sure that things are running smoothly. What happens, of course, invariably, is that you're accountable for the performance of others, and there are various issues that are out that are in the workplace that are affecting you, and leadership is about encouraging people to make a decision to do things differently, to confront those issues that are affecting you negatively. And so here in this area of problem solving, it's easy to see how a traditional approach is affecting you in a negative way. And what, in our continued coaching together, what we might address and get at is, what are the steps you can take to, in fact, confront these issues head on, without the avoidance, without the worry, without the overwhelm, and find a stepwise approach that's going to help you to really deal with these in a way that makes you feel like you've done everything you can do. Because I get the sense, and it certainly seems to be the case that that a lot of people in situations similar to yours are feeling a little bit like victims of their circumstances. And we don't want you to feel that way. We want you to take more of a leadership position with respect to some of those things that are going on. How does that sound? Is any of this resonating with you? Does it seem to ring true? Is this something that you might be interested in looking at as we move forward, is seeing what you can do about some of these situations that are affecting you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I guess for me, it feels like it might be a good opportunity to be able to prioritize what needs to be done, and to get a better grip. I mean, what you said earlier about that shifting workplace, part of that is having younger staff now that have a different viewpoint on the workplace than I do, and so rather than really knowing what my corral looks like, for lack of a better word, that corral's always shifting too. I don't know, always where my range of responsibilities is, and there's additions and surprises regularly.
Right. Yeah.
So yes,
Absolutely.
the opportunity to be able to talk about that, I guess, and to try and unravel that, because at this point I just feel a bit overwhelmed by all of that, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Let's talk about stress tolerance for a moment. You know, we're not gonna leave problem solving completely, but I just want to tie in for a moment this idea of stress tolerance and take a look again at possibly some of your responses to the statements, because I do have that in
Okay,
another
yeah.
section here, so we can talk about that. For example. Um, uh, well, first of all, does that lower score in stress tolerance, does that resonate with you? Does that ring true?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it looks higher than it actually feels.
Oh, okay. Okay. And you can see that there's a gap there between your stress tolerance score and the gold bar range, which we're really shooting for. So let's talk a little bit about that. So for example, in response to the statement, I can't think clearly when I'm under stress, you said that was sometimes true for you. And so again, do you see the connection between the problem
Yes.
solving, which the problem solving issues, which are quite emotional, to this idea of being able to think clearly when you're under stress?
Yeah, yeah, it rings loud and clear, actually.
Okay. And then this other statement is about thriving in challenging situations, and you said that that was only sometimes true for you. And I think when under more sort of more ideal conditions, I think we human beings like to be challenged. Right, we like to have a reasonable challenge set in front of us, and to hear that really you're not thriving in challenging situations seems to speak to maybe the scope of some of the challenges that you're faced with at this time. Would that be true?
Well, yeah, Dave, I think it's partly scope, um, and it's partly that internal feeling. I think throughout most of my life I've been hopeful, facing challenges and being able to work through them. Now it's feeling more like really what I'd like to do is turn around and walk away from them a lot more often.
Right, and that really helps to understand your response to another one of these statements, which is I handle upsetting problems well. You said that was only sometimes true for
Yeah.
you. So you're feeling like you are not rising to the occasions that are presenting themselves in the workplace, and so what might be helpful as we move forward is to talk a little bit more about those specific situations and how you can feel better about your own response to those. Would that seem to?
Yeah, well, that would be like a wonderful thing entering into my life at this point.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what we're doing is we're building a bit of a mental to-do list in terms of the areas that we want to address. What I'd like to do now, before we leave this page, let's just talk for a moment about flexibility. And you can see that stress tolerance and flexibility are both the same color bar, which
Hmm.
means they belong to the same category of skills. And they belong to the category of stress management. And of course, you can see that possibly how the more flexible we are, the greater our ability to deal with stress tolerance. And while these two scores are a little bit lower, and so that they may in fact be teaming up to present some obstacles and limitations for you. So does that little bit lower flexibility score seem to ring true for you, first of all?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Okay. Okay, and again, if we're going to look at some of the areas that of flexibility which may be challenging for you, one of the statements is, "I do not like being in unfamiliar situations." You said that that was sometimes true for you, and
Well,
I guess what you're facing at work is maybe on a daily basis is unfamiliar situations.
yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like it's a steady avalanche of unpredictability.
Right, and then you went on to say that it's sometimes hard for you to change your ways. which of course, if the workplace is nothing but continual change, then of course that's going to be very challenging for you.
Right. Yeah. Yes, it's feeling like a major challenge at this point.
Okay, so that's a little bit about about our mental to-do list in terms of future coaching. So we'll keep those three in mind as we move forward. But let's now take a look at the overall model, which you've not really seen, and that's on page 4. And you can see there that at the center of our model is this concept of emotional intelligence. And then we've got other skills and competencies that we can actually focus in on and improve. And there are 15 of them, and we're going to take a look at your scores in those 15 areas. You can see also that they're divided up into categories, as I mentioned, with respect to stress management. You can see the subscales or the actual competencies that are related to that as well. And really, again, back to your original question about why we're doing this because your emotional and social functioning determines your effectiveness as a leader. And your personal and professional well-being, again, is correlated with your effectiveness as a leader. And we also know that workplace performance is connected from empirical research. We know that your workplace performance is connected to your levels of these various competencies. So let's dive in and take a look at those now. So on page 5, you see an overview of all of your scores. And so you can see the 5 composite areas, you see the 15 subscales, and you see the 3 highest ones that we talked about already, the emotional expression, the self-regard, and the optimism. Those are your highest. And now we can see some of the other scores that might be related that we might want to tie in as well. And so some of the ones, just sort of working from the top and moving down, our first gap there is between your score in self-actualization, which is about having meaning and purpose in your life, and where the gold bar standard or where the effective leaders score. So tell me a little bit about that, and in terms of meaning. Was there a time in your career when you felt like you did have that sense of meaning and purpose?
Yeah, I think so. I think really up until this last couple of years, I felt like I was really contributing, that I was being challenged in good ways. I mean, it was interesting work, and I guess now I'm at a place where I can't see the forest for the trees a lot of the time, and it's like, what am I actually doing here now? Is this the best possible way I can be spending my life?
Right.
So there's some, those thoughts are in my head pretty regularly about maybe this is a time to be taking a look at how I want to spend the rest of my years. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It occurs to me that that one of the ways to address self-actualization issues is to really, really spend some time reflecting on how you view what you do, and I think that that what I've heard from some of your colleagues is that you are involved in providing a really valuable service to the citizens of our country, and you can feel really good about that. But you can also lose sight of that when you get bogged down in some of the daily organizational issues that you face. And so just wondering if getting back to that focus on the service that you provide, that maybe that's a place where you derived a great deal of self-actualization at one time, if there's a way to get back to that. What do you think about that idea?
Well, yeah, perhaps. I guess at this point I'm really not too sure. Like I think that what I find myself doing is focusing more on what I'm actually going to do with my life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that you're sort of being forced into that situation by some of the changes and challenges organizationally that are impacting you in a negative way at this time. So if we could improve your abilities to deal with those organizational impacts or those organizational influences rather, and equip you better, maybe that could allow you to see and focus more on this valuable service that you provide?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I think I'm feeling a bit like the frog in the slowly heating pot, and I'm at a point where I'm thinking, is it time to jump, or or am I just going to sit here and boil? Um,
I just want to tie in your score and independence here, Philip, because you can see again, while 96, just to remind you, 99 and 96, these are not low scores, but they are lower than our leadership gold bar, and so that's where what we want to talk about. And so you talked about the frog in the proverbial heated water, and your score at 96 seems to indicate that in some respects, going back to an earlier statement that I made, it seems like you're feeling a bit like a victim here.
yeah, there really is that sense, I think, and it's not a very powerful feeling.
Right, and leadership is contradictory to the state of feeling like a victim. And so what we want to talk about is we want to talk about shifting uh, your focus from or shifting that feeling of being a victim to one of taking back your power. How can you take back your power and feel maybe like you once did about your position? And so we want you to be more independent. We want you to be stepping up to the plate a little bit more and rising to the occasion, and again confronting some of those changes and some of those issues that you are finding that are impacting you negatively, and maybe speaking up about those. And what that might mean is that might mean tying in some of your ability with assertiveness. At 108, that's not a low score. It's right at the lower end of our leadership gold bar range, but it suggests that you do have that ability to speak up. Is that true?
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, there's definitely some interesting things to think about here, um, and I look forward to actually reading this report in a bit more depth now, and our next session. When would we have our next session?
Well, that would be in a week or 2 weeks from now, and that would be sort of. I'm going to give you a bit of homework for our time before our next conversation, I want you to read through the whole thing in a great deal of detail. I'll just refer you to the next page, page 6, which actually takes a look at your scores in the individual EQ competencies and relates them to the 4 dimensions of leadership. That's going to tell you a little bit about the areas of leadership where you might be struggling a little bit in, and we can certainly talk about that. And it also is talking about some areas that are potential derailers for you, are really hampering and hindering your leadership effectiveness. So we can talk about that too. At the very end of the report, just skip through. Want you to read through all of this stuff. Want you to head to page 23, where it's an opportunity for you to write down some of the things that came out of this conversation, and pick out 3 areas that you'd like to improve in for next time, and we'll get into more depth at that time. Is that
Okay.
something that you're willing to commit to?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Great. Okay, so thanks, Philip, for taking the time and for your willingness to be open to this conversation, and we'll book an appointment to follow up with this at that time. So right now, for all of you participants, we're just going to wrap up our demonstration debrief and just have a bit of a discussion about it. And if you have a question, please put up your hand, and I will unmute your mic, and you can speak your question, or feel free to type it into the chat box, and we'll take those questions now. So right now I'll ask for some of your observations or some of your feedback, Kim, on that conversation. So what are some of your thoughts on how that went?
Well, I think that I mean, you had me understand the model really well. I think it felt a bit like I was being rushed through it because we were late getting started. So there was that component to it, and I
Right.
think that influenced the way our conversation went both ways. So, but I think the leadership report is such a wonderful tool to use with people, and I think that the directions that you took it were really good. It is about, at the crux is self-leadership, and I think that poor Philip's feeling in a place where he's not really capable of leading himself at this point, let alone others.
Right.
And so just the opportunity to be able to explore that and not only reconnect with his core self and his core values, but see how those are then applicable in his present world.
Right. Absolutely. I've got a question from Diane, and it's about the mean, and actually, Diane and everyone, the mean is 100, and that is by convention. Most standardized psychometrics have chosen the mean of 100. And then the standard deviation for the EQI, again, by convention, most other psychometrics is 15. And so anything between 85 and 115 is considered to be the normal range, or the mid-range rather. And with respect to the scale that you see at the top of the range there, we're actually shortening the range, and shortening the range actually raises the bar. Figuratively, not exactly literally. And so, for example, if someone is scoring 112 and we have identified 115 as the upper range, then someone scoring 112 is not as acknowledged. And it works at the other end even better, because previously, if we have 85 as the low end cutoff of the mid range, then we've got someone who's got a score of 87, we've got someone who has a score of 85, 80. Let's say they've got a score of 83, no, 87. Then we've got someone who is still within that mid range, and with putting the range at from 90 to 110, that indicates to people that they really need to pay attention to this. So it's more compelling to shorten the range up in this way, and so that's one of the things that about the scale. So anything that is about 10 points difference is a significant difference in terms of of comparing standardized scores, and we can talk about those differences. Less than 10, we start getting into potential similarity. And I don't know if that makes sense to people, but it has to do with probability and confidence intervals and some of the statistics around EQI standardized scores. We review all of that in the EQI certification course, and so that's something that you'll have a greater understanding of if you've taken the EQI certification course, or if you plan to take the EQI certification course. And for some of you who I see on the list have taken the EQI, the original EQI certification course, they've done a much better job in some of these areas with the EQI 2.0. So if you have questions about any of that, let me know. Let's see. What I liked, Kim, in terms of our conversation was I think it demonstrated something really well that I think a lot of people are experiencing, and you and I have had this conversation about a lot of managers that we've been working with in organizations, and that's the feeling like things are changing and I'm not really sure what to do about that. And feeling a bit like a victim, and feeling like they don't have a voice, and these kinds of ideas, and really, it's one of the things that we end up saying to managers is, listen, don't sit back and let all this stuff happen to you. You have things to say about this. You have opinions, and you need to say them. That's the only way that you're going to feel better about yourself, rather than feeling like this is taking you out. You need to step up and demonstrate some leadership here. and you've noticed that too in some of your coaching, Kim. Any further thoughts or ideas in that regard?
Well, I think that again, the tool is so beneficial in helping people get reacquainted with their true capacity on every emotional level,
Absolutely.
and I think just having that common language of how we all operate, those 15 competencies, that's how all 7 billion plus of us do operate, and to be able to have that language to talk about it and recognize it internally, and recognize that there are choices within that to change those results.
Right, and also the gold bar ranges, I think, really serve to say that effective leaders are score higher in these areas, and so if there's a gap, you need to pay attention to it, because this is likely an area where you are struggling, and you're going to feel better about yourself when you've done what you can do. And when you stand up and have that conversation with your manager, confront that poor performance, when you speak out about something that's going on in your workplace that is concerning to you, you can sleep better at night. You're going to feel better about yourself. That sense of self-actualization, self-regard, that's going to increase as a result of taking steps to stand up to what you feel is being done to you. And you're going to be a more collaborative leader in that way as well. And I find a lot of people have traditional notions about leadership. They're feeling this way.
Yes, yes. Yeah, traditional notions that they see are slowly eroding in their effectiveness.
Yeah, just this morning, a conversation, and it came up again. It's like a real consistent theme. This idea that I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've never seen these things that are happening now. Things like these younger workers who really want to get to know me, right? Who want an actual relationship with me beyond just talking about work. And it's really fascinating that that's an issue for people. And that's because things are changing, and they're not really changing with those changes. They're not adapting and being flexible.
Yeah, and they get caught when they feel that they're actually stuck there. So I think again, this is a very effective way to help people get unstuck from that thought.
Absolutely. All right, well, we just have another minute, and if there are any questions, we're happy to take those now. And if there are no more questions, we're always happy to take your feedback and your comments and questions by email. You can reach both of us easily by email. That would be david@eitrainingcompany.com and or Kim, Kim, @eitrainingcompany.com. And if you have any feedback or have any questions or comments, please feel free to send those to us. Otherwise, I don't see any more questions coming in. I don't see any hands raised, and so I'm going to thank you, Kim, for being Philip this morning. I'm going to apologize for the last time for all of our technical issues this morning, and let you know that we are going to work on those technical issues, and we're going to make sure that future webinars go smoothly. And please try to join us each month. We'll try to give you more notice, etc., and try to do a better job of letting people know that we're doing these, and hopefully generate some great discussion and help people to use the EQI leadership report. And if you're interested in our certification courses or our services, please visit our website, eitrainingcompany.com. Any final thoughts, Kim? Final messages, words?
Just thanks, Dave, and thanks to everybody that tuned in, and may everybody have a wonderful Friday.
All right. Take care, everyone. And we look forward to working with you. Bye for now.